Evening when there's an attractive ball game and when it's raining out, and we just welcome our new guests here tonight. I wanted to say that we have done city council candidates nights before, but we have moved up to an upper level and now are doing the representative for the first Essex district. And I'm delighted that so many did want to come this evening and meet our candidates. We have a format that will hopefully move us through and get through by about 8:30. We have John Peroni as timekeeper. He is a resident here. For the 14 years that I've lived here at the village, I've tried to do this kind of an event to help people understand the issues that are before us as we go to the polls, and hope that they will vote intelligently when they get there. And we have no favorites. It's all up for grabs, and we wish them all luck. I will like to introduce our moderator, Tom Jones, who is a former city councilor. We will have him carry on the evening. We have a format in which we will introduce the candidates and ask them to do a short bio, and particularly the one main reason that they want to be a representative for our state legislature. And then there are 3 questions that we have posed to them, which we hope that they will find interesting to respond to. And then if time permits, we will take your questions from the audience. I've already collected several. If anyone wishes to think about something during the evening, there are paper and pen on the table, and please take something and state your interest. Thank you very much. Let me introduce our city councilor, Ed Cameron, who is running for Democratic representative. And then we have Jim Kelcourse, the Republican candidate. We have Ari Herzog being an independent party voter, and we have James Stagnanelli Steve Stagnelli, who is an independent voter, and we have James Rama Valianti as another independent candidate. It's my observation that there are many independent candidates running for several offices this year, and that's interesting. And one of the questions may relate to that. Let me introduce somebody you probably well know as our moderator, Tom Jones. I think you'll make an interesting evening.
Thank you, Olga, for hosting another wonderful forum, and also to the chairman of the board and the trustees who are nice enough to give us this facility. It's wonderful that somebody will open their community center, if not their home and heart, for politicians in this day and age. And as a failed one, I know that the format this evening, we're going to have a brief bio, brief being a relative term, of each of the candidates. They're going to have 5 minutes or less to tell us everything it is they think we need to know. Then we're going to go to pre-written questions. They've been forwarded to the candidates so that they're familiar with them. Each candidate will have 2 minutes per question to answer. They'll be given a 30-second high sign, and then at the end of 2 minutes, they'll be summarily executed if they're not finished. The candidates will then each be allowed to ask 1 question of another candidate. There'll be a 2-minute response to each answer, and followed by a rebuttal by the asker if necessary of 1 minute. And then if time permits, and if you're not bored to tears by me at that point, we'll ask the audience for their questions, and if they've not already been asked, and there will be again a 2-minute period to answer. So without further ado, the other thing is that we're going to do rotation so that every candidate gets a chance or is stuck with answering first, and we'll try to roll through it. And I'm going to ask Ed Cameron to start with the 5-minute bio. Come on. So just come on up. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Great to see you. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Olga, for sponsoring this. This, I think, is the third time I've been in this room for a debate. My name is Ed Cameron. I've been on the Newburyport City Council for 4 terms, and we've had 2 at-large council forums, debates here in the past, and so it's great to be back once again and see a lot of familiar faces from the neighborhood, and I know our timekeeper will do an excellent job because he has in the past. I'll talk about the thing that is least interesting to me and maybe of least interest to you, and that's me. So I've been on the City Council for 4 terms here in Newburyport. I think that's been a great experience, as other candidates here also have had that experience at the local level. And that's where you learn about what's going on locally with budgets, streets and sidewalks, potholes, schools, senior centers, and all the whole range, of services that get provided at the local level. You also learn about what the state's not doing, and that's something that I want to focus on. My background is working in nonprofit and government. For the last 27 years, I've been working with and on behalf of homeless people. I started a long time ago, 1987, when I actually did have hair, working in the Pine Street Inn in Boston. And I've continued that work today. In the early days, I worked doing a lot of one-on-one direct care, learning about the issues that homeless men and women and families had, working with them on job training, substance abuse, mental health, all issues that are at the forefront when we pull open the newspaper in the morning in the Boston Globe, and you read about DCF and children that are being neglected, when you read about substance abuse, stabbings on the Boston Common. That's really the life that I've been living as a professional for the last number of years. More recently, in about the last 12 years, I've been more of a manager, so I understand what it is to meet payroll, decide on budgets, deal with unemployment insurance, workers' comp insurance, increasing healthcare costs. So right now I oversee 70 people in a $30 million budget. Most of it is state funded, but we're a private 501c3, so I do know something about what it is to run a business. What I bring to this race is really what I learned from you. I've knocked on a lot of doors over the years, met a lot of people in Newburyport, and this year I'm looking to represent Amesbury, Newburyport, and Salisbury. I've learned a lot about the communities that I'm not from, so it's been great to learn about Amesbury and the businesses downtown and what's going on for the residents in terms of their property taxes, their concerns about education in Salisbury. A lot of similar issues in terms of education, but particular issues around development and the Salisbury Beach revitalization. I want to be a part of that movement forward. That's really why I'm running, to fill Mike Costello's shoes. I think Mike has done a terrific job. We had a good transition a couple of years when Senator Berdor resigned and Katie Ives took his place. She did a terrific job. She's working very hard, and it was a very seamless transition. I want to have that kind of transition for the next state rep, which I hope to be, and I appreciate your consideration. So look forward to hearing your questions and from the other candidates all evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. And now I'd like to turn the microphone over to James Kalkors.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you, everybody, for having me here this evening. This is a wonderful opportunity. This is my first time speaking at this venue. When I was a kid, I worked across the street at Eleanor Woodman's farm stand, picking corn and baling hay. And when I was that age, there was a Friendly's here, and I used to run across the street, and one of my biggest streets was getting a fribble over there at the break. So that's no longer there. Story Avenue has become a much busier area. There's all kinds of growth and development happening here right now. And the types of growth and development that I want to work on as your next state representative is expansion of business. The type of new growth that's going to help offset the increases to seniors in our community and to those on fixed incomes and to those who just can't, frankly, afford any more property tax increases. I'm a local guy. I've been in this area since I was 2.5 years old. I put myself through college after Amesbury High School on a full athletic scholarship to Villanova University for football, where I played for 4 years. Most guys who go to school on a football scholarship don't end up finishing. I actually got an MBA out of the deal. So while I was a full-time student athlete, I said, you know what, I'm going to get the most out of this, and I got 1 year of my master's in finance paid for out of the deal. Went to work for Fidelity Investments afterwards, paid off the last year of my student loan that I paid for out of pocket for my MBA, and said, I'm not done, because there's some greater things that I want to do. There's more that I want to give back to my community, and there's more that I have to learn, and that was going to law school nights while I worked full time. When I finished up, I said, you know what, I love this community. I drove all over the country. I was convinced there was a better place, and guess what? I found out there is no better place. Newburyport, Salisbury, and Amesbury has so much to offer. I have 2 little boys, Michael, who's 5, and Tommy, who just turned 3 about 2 weeks ago. My wife Amanda and I are both working full time, and we're raising our family just across the bridge over in Amesbury. And it's those 2 little kids' futures that I am concerned the most about. I want to make sure that regardless of where they go to school, whether it be Amesbury High School or if we actually come over here to Newburyport, you know, I want to be Newburyport State Representative. I don't know if I'm going to move across the bridge because we still go back to that Amesbury-Newburyport rivalry, folks. And that might just be, that might be going a little too far for my friends over there in Amesbury. But regardless, I want to make sure that they have available to them the very best in education. And as a city councilor, 3 times elected over in Amesbury, I hear the same thing over and over again. Every spring, the school comes before us and says, look, we need more money, city council. And then every December, when it's tax rate setting time, folks say, I can't afford to pay anymore. Especially those seniors that I've been meeting when I've been going door to door 3 terms throughout my city council career, just said, you know what, $100 might not be much to somebody who's in their 40s or their 30s, but $100 is a lot to somebody who's just struggling to get by on a fixed income in the town in which they raised their family and paid property taxes all these years. Well, guess what? I agree with them. So what I want to work on and what I'll get started on when I get started work the Monday following as your state rep-elect is getting more local aid back, not only for the schools and revising that Chapter 70 formula, but more money back for everybody in this district. In the district that I've grown up in, and the district that I love. Thank you very much, folks. Look forward to this evening. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Kalkors. Now, Ari Herzog.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Olga. Thank you to the Village of Newburyport for hosting us tonight. Can everyone hear me in the room? Okay, good. Look, I'm running for state representative as an independent candidate. To my right is Jim Kalkors. To his right is Ed Cameron, Republican candidate, Democratic candidate. I'm an independent candidate. I've been an independent, or as Massachusetts calls it, an unenrolled voter since I turned 18 years old. I'm 39 today. For 20 years, I've been an unenrolled voter, an independent voter. It's who I am. Why am I running for state representative? It's very simple. I'm in my 3rd term on the Newburyport City Council. I'm humbly appreciative to everyone in Newburyport who has voted for me and re-elected me twice. I feel that I'm adequately and passionately representing the people of Newburyport, and it's the same adequacy and passion that I want to represent the people in the district. So who am I? Cognizant we have a timekeeper, I've prepared some notes to keep me on target. First, I'm the only candidate of the 5 of us with direct management experience managing state government programs and local government programs here in this district. I moved to Newburyport in 2007 to work for Mayor John Moak. I was his Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. One of my accomplishments, one of my proud accomplishments, was I conceptualized the framework for an energy advisory committee. I wrote its bylaws, I recruited its initial members. Previously, I worked in state government. I was a special assistant to the Secretary of Economic Development under both governors, Romney and Patrick, and under 2 different cabinet secretaries. I know how state government works. I know where the bathrooms are in the State House. I don't need to find them. Second, I'm the only candidate, to my knowledge, with a Master in Public Administration. I received that in 1990. I graduated college in 1999, Worcester State College, with a bachelor's in sociology. I didn't want to be a social worker. I became a webmaster. I dabbled in web technologies for a couple years. I moved into newspaper reporting, and I finally shifted into working in state government. Concurrent to working in state government, I studied at Suffolk University, and I got my MPA. And third, I really enjoy being your public servant. As the 2 gentlemen before me mentioned, residents are frequently contacting me to talk about trees being cut, stop signs being installed, potholes, you name it. I've heard it. And one of the things that residents appreciate about me is the fact that I very quickly get answers to their problems. Many residents have told me they've tried to install brick sidewalks in various parks in front of their homes in Newburyport. They've reached out to department heads, they got no response for months. Finally, they contact me, I get it resolved within days. I don't know why I need to be involved for it to happen, but it's happening and they appreciate it. Fourth is, not only do I enjoy being your public servant, I've been a public servant in Boston since I got elected to the city council. Within weeks after I was elected in 2009, I volunteered as a member of the Massachusetts Municipal Association's Policy Committee on Energy and the Environment. I've been networking with state officials and other local officials for the past 5 years. I have the contacts. I have the context. I know how to make things happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Herzog. Next, Stephen Sangelli.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Some of you I have met at previous venues, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. Anything that's organized by someone named after my mother is a good place to be. My name is Steve Stanganelli. I'm a certified financial planner, a 19-year resident of Amesbury. I believe that I am the common sense choice to replace Mike Costello. Because if we're tired of politics as usual, and considering that more than 50% of the folks who are registered voters in these communities are not affiliated with a party, which says to me that they are looking for something different, then I believe that I make that difference happen. Why do I call myself the common sense replacement? It's principally because as a business owner for nearly about 24 years, and for half of that as a financial planner and tax preparer, I have worked with families at their kitchen tables, helping them make common sense out of their finances, helping them make sense out of the nonsensical government regulations that sometimes impact them. And I believe that taking that kind of experience, that practical perspective, will help me help you better as we move forward. So why am I running? It's not because I have a lot of time. For those of you who've heard me speak before, I have a wife who is a saint. I think all of us who have wives who let us do this are saints. But we are the parents of a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and 16-month-old. It's not because I have a lot of time between my practice and my family to do this. It's because I think it's important, and you make time for what is important. That's the value that I'm instilling in my family, and that you get involved to make a difference. And the difference that I see that we can make is helping people live more affordably, helping people get into and stay in the middle class. These are the themes of what I have been working on and the issues that you'll see on my website. I've lived in Amesbury for 19 years. I have seen what has developed over there. I would like to see that kind of development increase. I think that we can do that across the entire district. And to that end, I have put forth a number of proposals that I think will help us be more cost-effective and be able to achieve what we're trying to achieve for education, which is my biggest issue, because professionally I work with families, helping them try to navigate how to finance and pay for college, as well as figure out how to finance their retirement later. And we have basically 2 crises in this country, college and retirement. And to that end, I have been the one proposing tax credits for savings and deductions for property taxes so it can take a bit of the bite out of our property taxes to make it more affordable for us to live here. And in terms of economic development, there are a number of things that we can do with private-public partnerships. I think that is the key for us. In my financial planning practice, I have a motto, and that is, plan well, invest smart, live better. That, to me, only makes common sense. 30 seconds. And that is what we need, that kind of common sense approach to how we think about tax policy and spending priorities as we move forward. So I appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanguinelli. And now, Mr. Valiente.
Yes, I'm a little bit nervous. First of all, thank you, Olga, for inviting me, for finding me, for digging and finding my phone number. I know it's a little bit hard to find. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, John. Thank you, all the Port Media viewers. This is on Port Media, is that correct? And thank you to all the fellow candidates for putting yourselves out there and putting great ideas out there. I've learned a lot in this campaign. I am a newcomer to political office. If I get elected, I will be a newcomer to political office. I am not a newcomer to public service. I come from a family of public service. It is in my blood. It is in my roots. I come from a family of 10 kids. One of my brothers happened to be a state rep, served nobly for 6 years in our hometown of Marlborough, Massachusetts. Dad, Frank Valiente, ran for state senate twice. Another brother served as a city councilor, elected for 4 years at the age of 21. I have always followed politics, probably a little bit fearful of jumping in. And this time I had to jump in. And yes, Michael Costello resigned, and it's unfortunate that someone has to resign for all 5 of us to get in. But we're in now. And what are we going to do about it? Well, I'm going to learn from as many people as I can, including my fellow candidates. I'm no expert on the issues. I am well versed on environmental issues. I'm in the solar business right now. I've been in the environmental, recycling, and solar business, total of 11 years now. And I know that the environmental way is always the best economic way. I've learned that time and time and time again through hands-on experience. I've learned a lot of things in my 56 years through hands-on experience. Haven't always had successes, but I've gotten myself up, picked myself up, and got back in the fight every time. At every job I have worked at, I have excelled, usually gone to the top performer in every industry I've worked in. And I'd be glad to give you references, show you my resume. I was in the mortgage banking field, top producer for 9 years. I started out of college with Colgate-Palmolive in San Francisco, then New York City. Yes, I've traveled around the world. I come from 5 or 6 or who knows, more generations of Massachusetts natives. I've been here in 6 years in Newburyport. Please, please, please don't hold that against me. I know a lot of people are from here or been here a lot longer than I have. But I can guarantee you, no one will fight harder and stronger for the things we all need to fight for. Okay? Why would you want to elect me state rep? I'll work for reform, real reform. Okay? Did anyone follow the probation scandal? Okay. How about getting rid of corruption, or at least putting a dent in corruption? I don't feel that I have the power to get rid of corruption, but I will do my best to put a dent in it, and I will propose to make patronage illegal. That's meaning where you go and get someone a job where you don't know if they're qualified. Constituent services involves a lot of things, and it's working with everyone. It's helping them as best they can. Getting them jobs in state government, I don't, in my opinion, some may differ, some may not agree, but I don't think that's part of a state rep or state senator's job. 30 seconds. Thank you. So I'll be doing a lot of different things. I'll be calling for term limits. Yes, term limits for the state reps and state senators as well. 8 years. If I may, show of hands, how many people know that the state pensions don't kick in until 10 years? How many people are aware of that? Okay, some. State pensions kick in at 10 years. I'll be proposing 8-year term limit. Okay? I'll be proposing two-year term limit on Speaker of the House. Thank you very much.
right, thank you. Those were very nicely done bios. That was your 5 minutes. Now the pre-written questions, we'll move to 2 minutes, and let's kick them off. The first question will go to the next person in line, Mr. Kelcourse. This is a multi-answer. Please comment on how you will vote on ballot questions 1 through 4, eliminating the gas tax indexing, expanding the beverage container deposit law, expanding prohibition on gaming, and earned sick time for employees.
Yes, no, no, and no. Do you want me to explain? So yes, I don't think that, first of all, with the CPI, I think that the legislature should take a tough vote every time that they're looking for new money from us, plain and simple. I've been asked, well, you know, if the CPI were, if it were actually repealed, if the law were repealed, where would we get the money to fix the bridges and roads? Well, I know that there's been an amendment to the budget that was proposed and that was defeated, that any excess that were collected would be put aside for the repair of bridges and roads and for maintenance. I think that would be a great step in the right direction. Bottom line, we should take the tough vote and really do what we're supposed to do as elected officials. Two, with respect to the expanded bottle bill, look, I believe that the penny on tax additional to invest in curbside recycling by the beverage manufacturers is the best way to solve the issue. Let's invest in curbside recycling. We have excellent curbside recycling over in Amesbury. We have excellent curbside recycling here in Newburyport. There's no reason we can't expand that all throughout the district. You know, I was reading an article about it, and I think it's just absolutely disgusting to have beverage, 110 Liquors, Leary's, take back bottles. I think the owner of Cappy's in the Boston Globe was cited as saying, you know, you would be amazed at the types of things that end up in these bottles and the same places that we're distributing your food and beverages from. So let's invest in the curbside recycling. With respect to the gaming, it's going to provide jobs. And I think that the lawsuits that would arise after the issuance of the licenses and the infrastructure invested down in Plainville would be far more devastating. In respect to earned sick time, look I'm for having sick time, but let's debate that in the legislature. I don't like the legislator and the language in the question.
Ari, do you need him again?
I'm good.
Okay, go.
I'll stand up. Yes, no, yes. To elaborate on the question number 1 is the gas tax. I support repealing it. I feel that the state legislature should vote on this every year if possible. We're voting on the budget every year, or is Mr. Kelcourse suggesting that is anyone suggesting that we just have the budget increase every year without voting on it? No, I think we should vote on this every year if need be. Question number 2 regarding the beverage law, bottle bill, I support expanding it. Question number 3 regarding the casino law, I am opposed to repealing it. Let's keep it on the books. Voters in multiple communities have voted for it in their communities. I don't want to deny them their vote. And 4th, the earned sick time. Hey, I've gone back and forth on this issue, but at the end of the day, I want to protect hardworking Americans who get sick from time to time, or their family members get sick. So let's give them time off.
Thank you. Ms. Sanganelli, do you need him?
Thank you. So I've also given a lot of thought to these questions, and we've had a pretty heated set of questions like this on the Amesbury Talks Facebook page, where I've contributed my answers to this. Regarding the gas tax, I would vote yes, because I do not believe that legislators should be ducking their responsibility to vote on taxes. I do also understand, though, that departments of transportation and cities and towns need to know, for planning purposes, what their budget's going to be going forward. So while I would vote yes on this particular ballot question, I would propose, just as we have, with other types of contracts for employment, where you have a 4-year contract and then you renegotiate or extend it, I would propose that as a replacement of this particular ballot initiative. Regarding the deposit expansion, I would vote no. I'm all for recycling. I think curbside recycling needs to be increased. I think we need to put in public spaces that kind of recycling, because the trash you see is because sometimes you can't find a place to put it. Regarding gambling, I would say yes to the repeal, principally because of the external costs that it would cost us. Yes, I know that they made a calculated risk to start building. But the reality is there are a number of costs, whether it be from crime, whether it be from addiction, whether it be from the impact. If anyone has ever seen the impact for a superstore like a Walmart and the impact on other stores. Thank you. In regard to earned time off, I'm in favor of earned time off. As a business owner, I understand that it has an added cost. Yes, I do understand that it could be an added cost, but I also come at this from being a parent. I have an elderly mother. I have 3 children. When they get sick, we have to go, and my wife and I, to go to the hospital or to the doctors to take care of them. We are lucky, but not every employer offers that, and you should be able to take time off. You know, and it's also a public safety issue if you happen to be in restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you. So on questions 1 through 4. Question 1, eliminate the gas tax indexing. I would vote no. I feel the money has to come from somewhere. We're always wondering how we're going to pay for things. Always. We never have the money. And I feel like the indexing is, from what I've read, fair. So I would vote no to not repeal the way that's stated. Number 2, update the bottle bill. Yes. I would vote yes on that. I have been in the recycling business many years. I've been on recycling committees in various towns that I've lived in. It would be nice to have the recycling rates go up. The town I come from, Marlboro, didn't have the greatest recycling rate. I would love it if we would voluntarily recycle. I would love it if we would voluntarily do a lot of things. Just quick example of 15, 20 years ago, many of us are old enough to remember, did our friends, colleagues, family members, or ourselves get up out of the restaurants to go smoke outside? No. Unfortunately, we had to legislate that. That happens. We have to do something for the common good, the greater good. So I'm going to always be encouraging and hopefully inspiring people to look at the greater good. Okay, is it going to be a inconvenience? Yeah. Is it really going to help? Only if we increase it to 10 cents. And I believe there's a provision to increase it. I would say let's increase it to 10 cents to make it really effective. So yes, 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 yes. Repeal the casino law? Absolutely. Let's repeal it, get rid of the casinos for the exact reasons that Steve stated. There's so many social ills involved there. Earn sick time? Absolutely. We have to do it, again, for what everyone else has already said, what Steve said. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. The question number 1 is repealing the indexing of the gas tax. I would vote no on that and to keep the indexing. When people talk about the gas tax, it has not increased in over 20 years. Last year, the legislature increased it from 21 cents. Again, it's been flat as gasoline years ago was in the 150 range, went up to $364, now is going back down into the 330 range. It's always stayed constant at that 21 cents. We're one of the lowest in this region. We are definitely lower than, we're in the middle of the pack. Places like Connecticut, New York are in the 40 cents per gallon. Again, it went from 21 to 24. The indexing, I don't have a problem with. If we needed to take a vote on it in the legislature, I'm okay with occasional increases chained to the consumer price index. The bottom line is our roads, streets, and sidewalks are falling apart. You know that as candidates from walking around all 3 communities. Newburyport, it's been sidewalks, sidewalks, sidewalks. Where do we get the money to fix that? Some of that's local from the local meals tax, but a lot of that is from Chapter 90. That money comes from the gas tax. New Hampshire just raised it 4 cents. They nail us on the tolls every time we cross the border, so I think we need to take care of our roads and bridges. On question 2, I'm in favor of expanding the bottle bill. This is just simply taking what's in place and adding sports drinks and water bottles, which I noticed many of us have up here right now. That is, to me, common sense. It's probably not going to pass because the grocery stores and bottle bills are really coming out strong and outspending by about 10 to 1 on that. I would keep casinos in place. I don't like it, but I think that cat's out of the bag. And I would absolutely vote in favor of earned sick time. That's a big cause of minimum wage job folks losing their jobs, because if they're out, they don't get paid and they're going to get fired. I think a minimum of 5 days is sensible and makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. All right, the next question that you've all seen is actually a challenge because it's a wide open question and you only have 2 minutes. So, if elected, what would your priorities be and how would you advocate for them? We had examples of environmental jobs, tourism, small business, schools, and taxes. Mr. Herzog, you're first.
Mr. Jones, thank you. There's a whole lot of priorities, but I'm going to limit it to 3. I have 3 primary priorities. Number 1, if you elect me on November 4th, on my first day of office, I will do my first priority. I will convene a third-party, nonpartisan task force to look at analyzing the entire state tax code. It's been a couple years since it's happened. We're out of a recession. We need to look at it again. Every single tax. Let's look at loopholes. Let's look at corporate taxes. Let's look at it all. Second, and that's directly tied to local aid, we need to reform the tax code. Number 2, we need to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. I agree with Rama. Rama said that the environmental way is the only way. Well, let's face it. We have a lot of coal-burning power plants. We have a lot of oil-burning power plants. We need to get away from that. We need to look at alternative and renewable energies. Third, I want to change the conversation away from criminalizing abusers of guns and drugs, and I want to treat them and care for them instead. 67% of Americans told the Pew Research Center that they're opposed to criminalization. They're focused on treatment and care. I'm with them. I'm with the majority of Americans. Let's help people. Let's not criminalize them.
Thank you, Mr. Herzog. Mr. Sanguinelli.
Every year, over 1,000 bills are filed at the legislature, so trying to find priorities is going to be very difficult. But my priorities. What brought me into this race was because I'm a member of the Financial Planning Association, which would work with the state legislature to try to advocate on various number of things. One of them has been financial literacy in the schools. There is a bill called S234, an act to provide financial literacy from K through 12. That is an important priority I'm passionate about because I believe that we would be better off if we had an educated citizenry who understood the numbers behind the kinds of decisions that we up here are being asked to make. College affordability is a key thing for me. I went through public higher ed and I was able to work part-time and still pay and leave without debt. I know my clients that I'm working with, they can't do that, and that's not right. So to that end, I would be a proponent of an existing proposal called the Finish Line Scholarship by Senator Bruce Tarr, which would provide a free year of tuition to anyone attending a public higher ed school. I would expand upon that. I believe that toxic chemicals, we should have a right to live in an environment which is safe. It's hard enough to try to keep tabs on our kids, but having to worry about what's in their toothpaste and toxic chemicals in consumer products are linked to a number of cancers and even early puberty in girls. So we have within our power the ability to do 2 things: improve our public health as well as improve our economy by greening the economy. And I would also look at, we have a retirement crisis in this country. And to that end, I would be in favor of and propose a plan that would allow workers who don't have a plan at work to voluntarily contribute to a plan like the federal thrift savings plan, a very low-cost option. Thank you.
Mr. Valiente.
Thank you. So, priorities. This was hard to narrow this down. There are so many priorities. Everyone is going to say schools. Everyone's going to say education, as we should, Being raised in a family of 10, we all went to public schools. I went to the University of New Hampshire, again, put myself through college on scholarships, student loans, worked at least 20 hours a week. So I will fight, and I'll do the research on the Chapter 70. I'm no expert on the Chapter 70, but we all keep talking about it. I will lean on the experts to find out more about that. If elected, November 4th, I'll meet with anyone and everyone to try to educate myself about this issue and all these issues. I'll meet with Steve if he'll meet with me, win, lose, or draw, about this college affordability. In talking to people, lots of them mention college affordability. I don't know how they do it. We come from a family of 10, so for us, we qualified. But for those folks who have 1 or 2 kids and they make $100,000, $150,000 a year, how, or $70,000 to $80,000 a year and don't qualify for financial aid, how do they do it? I don't know. Jobs. I was a small business owner for 5 years, and I've been in the business world all my life. I have the experience. I have the renewable experience. Thank you. I will fight for renewable energy credits to continue. This is not a slam dunk that the renewable energy credits will continue. We have to have the legislation in place to have that continue. And I will work tooth and nail for that at the State House, here, anywhere. And if elected, I will right away set up a citizens savings free task force, like volunteer task force. Ways to save money. All of us have great ideas. Share those with me. Share those with all of us.
Thank you. Mr. Kim.
Thank you, Councilor. So my 3 priorities are really derived from what I've been hearing as I've been knocking on doors over the last several months. And as Rama said, yes, it is education. All 3 communities struggle each year in their school budget. And a lot of the struggle is because we're bumping up against the wall of very high property taxes, which is how we provide the majority of funding for our local districts, so for Amesbury, Newburyport, and Triton as well. And the state needs to provide more. The Chapter 70 formula that we've been talking about started in 1993 with the Educational Reform Act. Back then, two big pieces really weren't a part of the mix, and that was healthcare costs for teachers and administrators, and also increasing special ed costs. If you want to look at the special ed mandates from the federal and state government, a lot of the problem is from the federal level, where the funding for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act has been cut over the years. States tried to make up for that, so I think we need to focus on education, fix the formula, find money in the state budget to get in raw dollars to get into that formula, work on special ed and try to find efficiencies so we can keep the services high but cut on the cost. Number 2 for me is economic development, and when I say economic development, I mean jobs in these communities. It's revitalization of Salisbury Beach, it's Newburyport's waterfront park, it's the Lower Mill Yard in Amesbury. Transportation is a real big, important part of economic development. We're at a crossroads with 495, 95, and the train station and buses. We need to do better. That's why I'm also in favor of keeping the revenue coming through the gas tax. Third for me is women's issues. And I'm talking about healthcare choices that women should be making, not their insurers, not the government. I'm talking about domestic violence, which is all too prevalent in all 3 of these communities. As we know, many of us support the Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center. They're dealing with cases every day of domestic violence and things that are going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of, but where women are being victimized. And that one will be the 3rd issue that I want to focus on.
Thanks, everyone. I think after hearing what I've heard tonight, my top priority is going to be keeping more business from going over the border to Seabrook. So, but no, as a parent, it's education. The education of my 2 boys is foremost. As a son of 2 parents who are now nearing or considered seniors now, I want to make sure that everybody in this community knows about the senior circuit tax break. And that's $1,030 rather, that you don't even have to, file a return in which to receive. So I want to make sure every one of my constituents knows about that. I also want to work with the next administration in getting the housing monies released, the $1.4 billion that's been set aside by our last this current administration in which to release to help with housing in this area and homelessness. That's especially a really big issue here. And kind of along the same lines with homelessness is the opiate abuse that's taking place in this area. As a lawyer, as a small business owner in downtown Newburyport, I was shocked when I first started practicing law to find out how many instances of opiate abuse there are in this area. When I was knocking door to door in the Atkinson Common area, I couldn't believe the number of folks that complained about the individuals that were drug using in the Atkinson Common area. So what do we have to do about that? We need to provide more, greater, better treatment programs for those individuals. Because each one of us knows somebody in our family that's been afflicted with an addiction, okay, whether it be alcohol or drugs, and we want to help those individuals. So providing treatment programs, that's going to be first and foremost. But, another thing is going to be the local aid issue. We need to get as much local aid back to this area as possible. And further, we also have to reduce the barriers for businesses to stay in this area, to grow and flourish so that we can provide jobs for those living within this district. Thank you.
And thank you. All right, the third question. Although not located inside the district, what are your views regarding the relicensing of Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant? And how would you plan to support your views and/or the views of the nearby residents of your district at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission? Mr. Stanganelli.
When Seabrook was being first built, I lived in Methuen. That's where I grew up. And my best friend's mother worked at the plant for the general contractor. He would give me horror stories, regale us with horror stories about how it was being built. So it survived this long. I am happy that it has. But we have seen the reports about degradation in cement. I wasn't surprised having heard those stories. So I would not be in favor of relicensing the nuclear power plant. I do believe that if we had to, I would go to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I would work with our congressional delegation to let our thoughts be known that this is a safety hazard, that we need to find a way to replace that energy capacity that's presently being generated there. And we can do that by working in our region for increasing solar, increasing wind, both at commercial as well as residential installations. But we also have to look at that we are going to eventually need more pipelines for the importation of natural gas if we're continuing to use natural gas as an electricity source. 30 seconds. Now, I have made comment as well on a Facebook posting on Amesbury Talks. I mention it there because I'm very active to let people know what I believe. And in that case, there is new technology coming forward right now that would make the nuclear power plant at Seabrook and others able to extend their life. If only the Nuclear Regulatory Commission would allow the testing of these technologies. I would work again with our congressional delegation to get that done so that maybe we can relicense it and keep that capacity if it is safer.
Thank you, Mr. Stanganelli. Mr. Valiente.
Thank you. Thank you. What Steve said. Amen. And a women. And what Ed said about women's issues. By the way, I have 6 sisters, 7 nieces. I support and volunteer at the Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center, and I'll be fighting for equal wages among many, many, many other things that have to do with women. And I was at Seabrook in 1978, 79. I was in college wearing a hockey helmet with about 25,000 other protesters. Did not get arrested, which was kind of a badge of honor to get arrested at Seabrook. My sister did, get carried away in a bus with thousands and thousands of other people. So I hope that lets you know where I stand, but I'll be explicit where I stand. No to the relicensing. We have to, but where's the energy going to come from? Where is the energy going to come from? We barely made a dent in solar and wind. We have to invest more heavily in that. We have to put our money where our mouth is, put our sentiments where our mouth is. We have to do more solar, more wind. I believe Germany got off about 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, basically got off or decided to get off of nuclear altogether. Okay, so I would research how Germany is doing it. I have a lot of family in the energy industry. My hat's off to Kathleen O'Connor-Ives and Michael Costello for being part of the call to not relicense. Now, if by chance we're not successful in decommissioning or not renewing the license, we will have to do what Steve talked about. We'll have to find some way to make it safer. And are there technologies that can make it safer? We're going to have to do something. If it's going to stay there, we have to make it safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cameron.
So I'm also going to say what Rama said and what Steve said. I do favor that Seabrook not be relicensed. And again, these relicensings are a way for the investors who own the plant to try to extract more revenue out of an investment in an asset that they have. Seabrook was designed with technology from the late 60s, fought a number of battles to get built through the 70s, and it finally went online. I believe it was 1986. Ram, I think Barry Connell also might have been there with you at that time, wearing a hockey helmet, perhaps. I don't know. He's still, and you're both a little grayer, but you've continued that fight. I'm pleased to have the endorsement of the No More Fukushimas group. Originally, they talked to me and other councilors in Newburyport. We signed on to a letter opposing relicensing. I have testified at the hearings of the NRC. And over time, I came to agree that we need to close this sooner rather than later, so it's not extending it another 20, 30, 40 years. It's trying to achieve shutting down the plant sooner rather than later, maybe in the next 10 years. And our energy future really is dependent on figuring out what the next steps are. There's an old expression, everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. We can find reasons to oppose natural gas pipelines, to oppose wind turbines. Solar doesn't seem to be catching on as quickly as we'd like, but we've got to figure it out because we're going to need to be prepared. We're going to have very high electrical costs this winter, which has got nothing to do with Seabrook, but overall there's been a contraction in the natural gas supply, so that's going to increase costs. But I do think that Seabrook should not be a part of our energy future, and we need to work on those alternatives.
Thank you, Mr. Calcourt. Mr. Cameron, Mr. Calcourt.
Thank you. You know, this is an easy one for me because I took the initiative on the Amesbury City Council this past winter, and I sponsored the effort by the co-founders of No More Fukushimas, Bruce Scud and Joanna Hammond, to endorse and send their letter to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for no relicensing until the concrete degradation issue is resolved. So I worked hard with them. I was happy to say that we got unanimous support. Look, that needs to be addressed, but we also need to address with Seabrook is we need a joint effort, I think, by the states of New Hampshire and Massachusetts on a safe evacuation plan. I mean, that we're talking a lot about the concrete degradation, but I think that should be first and foremost right now. And so that joint effort together, I think we can come up with a really good plan to address the problems over at Seabrook, which is therefore going to now hopefully get the NRC at the federal level to move a lot quicker. But one interesting thing that was raised is the increase in the energy costs this winter. I mean, that's just another cost on top of the already increased costs of property taxes going up for schools, for other infrastructure, for other investments that we're making in our community that are really hurting those who are on fixed incomes. There's not enough pipeline out there. There's an increase in demand on natural gas because there's actually been an effort to stop. There's actually, the focus is now off of coal burning generators and off of other fossil fuel burning generator stations, putting an increased demand on the natural gas without the pipeline there. We kind of put the cart before the horse. We can't do that. We need better planning, which is going to create more jobs, and then we can follow through with that. I really appreciate the effort by those to make our world a cleaner place. I'm one of those. I want my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids to enjoy the lovely parks that we have here in this community and throughout the world and this country, but we need to put things first.
Thank you, Mr. Calcourt. Mr. Herzog.
Councilor Jones. let's provide some background what we're talking about. Everyone's talking about concrete degradation. That's alkali silica reaction. That's what we're talking about, ASR. Alkali silica reaction is what happens when concrete is interacting with groundwater. About 3 weeks ago, I joined some other members of the Newburyport City Council, and we visited Seabrook Station. Only elected officials can visit the station, or members of the media can visit. And we visited the station. We were led around by Nextara Energy, which owns the plant. We were led around by their officials. And I saw these ASR monitoring stations. They have about 130 of them, both underground and above ground. It's unacceptable. So I do support the initiative of Senator Ives and Representative Costello to shut down the plant. However, as everyone has mentioned, where is the power coming from? Seabrook Station today powers 1.5 million homes. That's something I learned at the plant. 1.5 million homes. Wind and solar can't do it. I don't know how much natural gas we need either. So that's something we need to look at. Finally, I'll mention, the station employs 800 employees. If we shut down the plant, we need a place locally for those employees to be employed.
Thank you, Mr. Herzog. The next question is very wide open. What are your views on welfare reform? Rama, this is you.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. Welfare reform, that is a big one. Well, I believe we all want to be productive, we all want to work. Most of us want to work. The folks who happen to be unemployed or on welfare, I believe should have to do, if they're able-bodied, workfare. And I don't know the whole history of workfare in Massachusetts, but that's what I would propose and that's what I would support. Some common sense form of workfare where people have to give back public service if they're going to receive public funds. Most of us know now more than ever our bridges need work, our sidewalks, as Ed said, need work, our roads need work, all the roads need work, all the sidewalks need work. As we all know, we walk the sidewalks downtown Newburyport. Amesbury, Salisbury, I'm not sure what their shape they're in, but I know on the Route 1 corridor, they're going from the bridge to the first light in Salisbury, there are no sidewalks. So basic, short and simple, workfare. President Franklin Roosevelt had the WPA or the CCA. I'm not old enough to really remember that stuff, but I still see remnants of it in different places when I go on hikes or when I travel. So we can put able-bodied people to work, and I think they will want to work. 30 seconds, thank you. So that's it. I'll give my time to someone else. Thank you.
Cameron?
Thank you, Councillor. So the very question, how would you reform welfare, can come from two different angles. Sometimes it's, how can we reform welfare because people are sitting around on couches watching soap operas and eating bonbons while the rest of us are working hard. And sometimes that question comes because, hey, we want to help people who need a helping hand up. So I'm going to kind of take the middle of the road. I'll first say that a lot of the work that I've done over the years has been working with families on welfare. I'm sure, as most of you know, welfare is really started in the 1930s. As Rama said, there's a precedent there with the FDR and the New Deal. And it was temporary aid to families with dependent children. It's had different names over time. There's some federal money and there's some state money that gets kicked in. Where I think the reform needs to happen, there's been a lot of crackdown on various abuses. In my own work history, we've reported people for fraud on a regular basis, and there is some element of that, just as there may be rich people cheating on their taxes. So I think we've done a good job in the last legislative session addressing some of those abuses to EBT cards and things like that. Where I think we need a long way to go is working on job training and childcare. Each night in Massachusetts, there are 4,000 families, and when I say families, it's usually a single mom with a couple of kids. Average age of the mom is 26 years of age, who are living in either family shelters or living in hotels that the state pays for. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Most of those families are on welfare. Most of them want to work. They can't find childcare. They can't afford childcare. Many of them are dealing with depression. Some of them are dealing with prescription drug abuse. So there's a whole host of issues that are tied up with welfare reform. I want to approach it from a supportive way, try to get people back to work and be productive members of society.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Mr. Calco.
Thank you. You know, I think the simple answer to the question is accountability. I mean, we got to hold folks accountable. I don't think there's anything wrong with picture IDs on EBT cards. I think that's a great part of the reform of the abuse that takes place. Look at, you know, my mom came from a poor family in Scotland. My father, every child in the household had to work to keep a roof over the heads of, you know, the family that grew up down on the South Shore. Growing up in this area, I worked since I was a kid. I had a summer job. But you know what? That doesn't mean that everybody out there has to do what I did, but what I think it means is that everybody has to be accountable. I think unless you really need it, and there are those folks out there that seriously need it. They have mental disorders, they have physical disabilities. I'm a firm believer in taking care of those who cannot take care of themselves. I believe in charity, but we need folks to really start saying, hey, you know what? It's not what the state can do for us or what the government can do for us, but what we can do to help make this a better country in which to live. Because at the end of the day, folks, you know, the money has to come from somewhere. And there's only so much that the folks that are working are able to afford in the form of their real estate property taxes, in the form of their fees at the registry of motor vehicles, in the form of the taxes that are being withheld in the form of income from their paychecks. And we see instances of abuse all the time. Are they so widespread that it's ready to bankrupt this country? Maybe, folks, okay? Entitlement programs need some form of limitations. And as your next state representative, I can tell you right now that I'll work extremely hard to make sure that people are held accountable. But those folks who really need it are going to get those types of services. And the folks who are homeless, especially in this district, are going to get the services that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Calco. Mr. Herzog. Welfare reform.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Welfare reform. A couple issues. Number one, last weekend I met with a local resident who shared with me some letters that she received from the State Department of Transitional Assistance, State DTA. This is an agency underneath the State Health and Human Services Department. And the Transitional Assistance Department, out of both their Boston and Lawrence offices, sent 3 letters inside of 1 week, and each letter had conflicting information about her benefits. That's welfare reform. The entire system needs reform. I mean, we talk about education, that education needs reform. The entire welfare system needs reform. Everything needs reform in state government. You know, we have in the state budget, would you believe that less than 1% of the state budget is devoted to environmental programs? Would you believe that 2/100ths of 1% of the state budget is devoted to arts and culture programs? I mean, think about where your tax money is going. We need to improve those services, welfare included, that's getting less money than everything else. We need to fix it. There's a hole in the bucket. And I'm ready to bring everyone together at one big table, and let's talk about solutions. And let's do it.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herzog. Mr. Stanganelli, you get the last word this time.
Thank you. No one would ever think I was Lawrence McDonald in the last word. But okay. Welfare reform. It's a loaded term. Part of the problem is, in politics, we're big on loaded terms. If you're tired of politics as usual, we should be having a conversation not with loaded terms. Ed was absolutely right. This can be looked at from 2 different ways, depending upon where you are on the political spectrum. I can tell you that having walked up nearly 130 miles through the 3 towns, knocking on doors, I hear you. People have said this in one way or another, that they want reform of one thing or another. We all understand that. When it comes to this specifically, we all have heard and believe in the saying, helping hand, not a handout. And that's what these programs are meant for. We can have economic justice with economic growth. There's nothing to say that we can't. To that end, we had this past spring a proposal, and I would support parts of that proposal that had passed. EBT use should be limited to transactions done in the state. Having verification of the person's resident status would be key, and using documentation to do that. I'm not saying we need to have photo IDs specifically for that, but we can verify if a person does live in this state. I do believe also that the support for employers to hire people, that credit, is something like the credit that I've also proposed for employers to offer a retirement plan, getting a credit. I believe in vocational training. That's what we also need to do, is add more to the vocational training. And part of the biggest problem is the housing issue. We need smarter growth, smarter building development plans that bring mixed use so that we can get people out of the hotels and into permanent housing. That will help end poverty and help get people get into the middle class. Thank you.
All right then. And the last of the pre-posed questions. With at least 52% of Massachusetts voters registered as unenrolled, respectful of your party affiliations, can you comment on the benefits or costs your campaign efforts receive from that voter base? And it starts with Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. I don't remember if it's been mentioned that I am a Democrat, and I won the Democratic primary here. So implicit in the question is the fact that a lot of folks are unenrolled in our region, in our district, and in our state. We have 3 of them here before you, and actually perhaps 4 with Councilor Jones. You know, it's a good question because often the phrase unenrolled independent gets thrown back and forth, and obviously independent sounds a lot nicer than unenrolled. And here's what I've got to say about the benefits and costs of unenrolled voters to my campaign. I've received most of my money, the vast majority of it from this district. A lot of that's been from Newburyport, since I know a lot more folks here, having served on the council and volunteered on a lot of campaigns, from Deval Patrick to Elizabeth Warren to Mike Costello and Katie Ives. And I welcome support from all across the political spectrum. As I've said in a previous debate and before the Democratic primary, I am a Democrat, but I was raised by Republicans. Both my mom and my dad are that way. My mom's deceased, and my father is an avid Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh listener, so I have no problem understanding where people are coming from that side of the spectrum. A lot of unenrolled voters are, in actuality, they are either Republican or Democratic. Some unenrolled voters choose to be unenrolled because the Democrats don't go far enough for them, or they choose to stay unenrolled because the Republicans don't go far enough for them. I respect that. I put the voters and the constituents before the party. I will never be beholden to party leaders in Boston. I will be beholden to the people who put me in office. So that is something that is going to be first for me.
Thank you. Well, I was unenrolled for 20 years of my life, from 18 until age 38. I joined the Republican Party in November of 2012. And, you know, the unenrolled voter is just like any other voter here in Massachusetts. Whether Democrat, Republican, or unenrolled, all of these voters are important. And as a Republican candidate, I'm going to be whatever is good for this district, whether it's Democrat, Republican, if the idea is good, I'm going to vote for it. If something is before us and it's going to help this district, and the Speaker of the House wants me to do something different, or the leader of the party wants me to do something different to help Boston or help some other area of the state, you know what? I'm going to put this district first. And unfortunately, I think sometimes, although we've had some good representation here over the years, I don't always think that the interests of the district have been put first. And that's one thing I will do. And that's how I think I appeal to the unenrolled voter, because quite frankly, 53% of the electorate is unenrolled for a reason, because they don't necessarily agree with all the Democratic values and they don't necessarily agree with all the Republican values. They fall somewhere in between. So they can be a great benefit to the campaign, or they can really hurt your campaign. But they're the ones who are ultimately going to decide this race. And so that's how they're going to help me, and I see that's how the unenrolled voter is really a benefit to my campaign. But again, they're just like any other member of a party of this electorate within Newburyport, Salisbury, and Amesbury. If it's good for this district, I'm going to vote for them, and so that's how they're a benefit to me, because I think that they know that, and that's how I'm going to benefit them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herzog.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. This is interesting to me. I'm going to challenge both Ed Cameron and Jim Kalkours that if either one of them is elected on November 4th, I challenge you to be beholden to the district. If Governor Coakley is elected, Mr. Cameron, I challenge you to not rubber stamp the governor. If Governor Baker is elected, I challenge you not to rubber stamp the governor.
Challenge accepted, I just said that.
Fair enough. I'm putting you to that.
Thank you, Counselor. I don't need you to tell me that, but thank you very much for your input. The district will always be.
Just a minute, we're still in the polite phase.
I'm a constituent of everyone. Listen, Tom was saying before 52% of voters are unenrolled. It's 52% statewide. In Essex County, it's 54%. Here in the first Essex district of all Amesbury, Salisbury, Newburyport, it's 56% unenrolled voters. I've done all the math. When I knock on doors, when I ring bells, when I go to events, and when people ask me why I'm running, and I give them my spiel, and they ask me, so are you a Democrat? No. Are you a Republican? No. Well, what are you? Well, I'm an independent. I've always been an independent voter. And they say, oh, well, so am I. Wife leans over, so am I. Grandmother leans over, so am I. I get that 9 out of 10 times. It doesn't seem, to me, it doesn't seem like 56%. It seems more like 95%. It's what I get. But at the same time, I don't want you to think that I'm just for the independent voter. Back in April, I received early support from Newburyport Democrats and from Amesbury Republicans. So I do have a wide berth of district representation of all political parties. Democrats, Republicans, unenrolled, Libertarians, Justice Party, Green Rainbow, you name it.
Thank you, Mr. Herzog. Mr. Stanganelli.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad we're still in the polite phase. Okay. I'll go back to something that I've said in the very beginning in my pamphlet. Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our own responsibility for the future. John F. Kennedy. Sometimes party loyalty demands too much. So that's why I have chosen to be an independent. Because I vote for the person, I vote for the issue, not for the party. Sometimes my beliefs line up one way, and sometimes they line up another way. And just like Ari, we probably have knocked on the same doors, because every door that I knock on, they will ask, are you running as a Democrat or a Republican? And I say neither. And they have a smile that breaks out from ear to ear, because most people are fed up with politics as usual. They want an independent thinking person who can come to this with common sense and practical beliefs, and that's what I offer. And to that end, I'm very willing to work across the aisle, and I expect to work across the aisle, because no one who stands before you here can expect to get anything that they want done unless they work with others. So remember, if you played well with others when you were in kindergarten, this is exactly the same thing. You're going to need to play well with others when you're in Beacon Hill. And I have wrangled lots of different interests when I'm working with clients, when I'm working with my pro bono financial planning clients, and when I've been working as anyone who has ever served on the board of a condo association knows what I'm talking about in terms of herding cats. So we have to work across the aisle. And I have support that has gone across the political spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And again, to piggyback on what Steve said, he said it very well. I'm tempted to vote for him now. Seriously. And Ari, and Jim, and Ed. Jim, just to point out, Jim ran as an independent for state senate 2 years ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so did I have any idea really what party Ed Cameron was before I entered into all this? No. Did it matter? No. Did I have any idea what party Ari was as a city councilor? No. Do I have any idea what party Donna Holiday is? No. What does it matter? Because people want to label us, okay? We come to their door and they'll ask Republican and Democrat, well, which way do you lean? And I'm just going to throw out some definitions, in my opinion, what defines a liberal. Open-minded, forgiving, giving, progressive, forward-thinking, looking at the big picture, lenient, fairness and equal treatment and access for all. My opinion of the definition of conservative: frugal, fiscally sound, prudent planning, watchdog on waste, redundancy, and unnecessary spending, mindful and activism for conserving our precious natural resources, committed to reduce, reuse, recycle. That's a true conservative, okay? And I think, aren't we all a bit of both? That is why I'm an independent. It doesn't matter what the party is. We need to do what's for the greatest good, for the common good, for the Commonwealth, what's in the best interest of the district and the Commonwealth for everybody. Thank you.
All right. Now that everybody's blood's starting to pulse a little bit, and knowing that we should get some licks in before kickoff, and this is where my job gets difficult. Each candidate may ask one question of another candidate. There's a 2-minute response from that candidate with a 1-minute rebuttal. We will strictly adhere. You won't hear any 30-second warnings. I'll just throw a flag and jump in. And the first question asked is by Mr. Kelcourse.
Well, since there's been a lot of talk about independence just recently, I'd like to know where the independent candidates, who the independent candidates would caucus with should they get elected. Organize with, what party they would organize.
Ask a candidate to answer the question.
Mr. Herzog.
Well, can you ask, don't we, are we able to ask a question of each candidate?
We'll be later in the evening if we do a round robin, and I know there are a bunch of questions yet to come. So Ari, 2 minutes, and remember he gets to rebut.
Who would I caucus with? Very simple. I don't know. I'll tell you why I don't know. Because we have an election day statewide on November 4th. I don't know who's going to be reelected. I don't know who's going to be elected. I don't know what either party's leadership is going to be like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to caucus with a party after I get elected. I'm going to caucus with either the Democrats or the Republicans. I'm going to caucus with a party that best reflects you, the people. Or is it going to be a party that is best representative of Chapter 70 needs? Or is it going to be a party that's best representative of environmental needs? I don't know. But I'm not going to give you an answer tonight. Sorry, Jim.
Rebut? No rebuttal.
Magnificent.
Mr. Herzog asked a question of any one individual.
Great, I'll ask a question back to Jim, if you don't mind. Jim, could you address how will you improve transportation needs of seniors and the disabled in this district?
Be glad to. So my number is on my literature. You can give me a call. I'll do my best to pick you all up and drop you off if I have a chance. But I've been working so hard these past several months that I haven't had much time, folks. I've been going door to door so often. But I'll work hard to improve transportation needs. You know, it's actually a great question because half of my family lives overseas. My mom's from Scotland. She came here in the 60s, met my dad up at Syracuse University. The rest is history. Over there, the transportation system is wonderful. It's just a great system, but like anything else, we have to figure out a way how to pay for it. So I'd like to see some money set aside for the transportation to go back into the MVRTA, to the MBTA, make seamless transition down to Boston or transportation down to Boston, be seamless and be uninterrupted by stuck bridges like I used to experience when I was working for Fidelity Investments. I used to commute from Amesbury to Boston. I decided, you know what, the public transportation isn't what I bargained for. It's difficult. So I'm going to drive in there, try that. It didn't work. So I can't imagine what it's like for the seniors here in this region. But we do have a great system. There is room for improvement, and I'm looking forward to improving that as your next state representative. Thank you.
Yeah, just real quick, could you just elaborate, maybe give me one example how?
Say what you want, you can't drag him back out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was well, look, I take this perspective. You know, here in Massachusetts, 1 in 8 households, I'll stand up, 1 in 8 households do not have a car. There are many families in this district who do not have cars. Either they rely on bikes, or they rely on taxis, or they rely on the MVRTA, which takes an hour to get from downtown Newburyport to downtown Amesbury. That's unacceptable. All of the council on agings across the district are underfunded. Seniors are relying on Northern Essex elderly transport. Seniors are relying on MBTA's ring and ride service. There's all of these things out there, and I was hoping that you could share how you would actually improve the system. But thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Mr. Herzog. Mr. Stanganelli, pick a victim.
Okay. I'm going to direct this one to Ed. In light of education funding reform, relative to some proposals that have gone around, there is a working paper by attorneys Malm, Dixon, and D'Agostine, I believe, that has talked about the history of Chapter 70 funding, and one proposal here is because the courts have said education is a state responsibility. Would you support the initiative to sue the state, as I would, in order to get that money actually worked from the state to us? Because, as Teddy Roosevelt said, sometimes you need to carry a big stick.
No, I don't think right now a lawsuit against the state is the way to go. There is definitely interest in this at the legislative level. It's been talked about from the administration, and I'm sure that whoever the next governor will be interested in it. As I'm sure many of you know, Senator Ives has pulled together a local group that's talking about special education reform. There has been an effort really started in Amesbury. A couple of folks started a Chapter 70 coalition to reform that, and that's expanded to Newburyport and Ipswich and other places in the North Shore. Some people are kind of pitching this as an urban versus suburban battle. I don't really see it that way. I think we need to just really dig into the formula, simplify it, have a base level that every community is going to get, and then the rest will be on the local burden. From time to time, lawsuits have helped propel the momentum. But in the FY15 budget, there's a study commission that's going to at least have, I think, 4 or 5 meetings regionally across the state to look at this. And again, I think it will be my #1 priority, and I'm sure if the 4 of you, either of the 4 of you are elected, it'll be your #1 priority. And I can't believe anyone running for election from governor on down through state senator, through state rep, isn't hearing about this from their constituents. Even the wealthier communities are battling about overrides, and it clearly is something where the state needs to do more. So hopefully we can avoid a lawsuit, because adding more lawyers to the mix may not be the best idea, but I'm sure we can count on our next legislature to get that done.
Rebuttal?
You mentioned the formula, and I applaud the efforts of trying to change that formula. I would support a proposal that has been floated by the Massachusetts Municipal Association for a long time now in terms of changing the formula so we rely less on the regressive property tax. One way to do that is to make sure the state actually has a set formula. In one case, in that example, 40 to 45% of income tax revenues going back to the cities and towns so that cities and towns can properly plan. That's the problem. You can't plan for what you don't have funds for, yet we're spending them. Thank you.
Interesting, Ally. Mr. Valiente?
Thank you. I was going to ask everyone a question, but the questions were going to be out of admiration, gratitude, and curiosity, because I'm still learning. So I'll pick one person to ask a question of, and actually I got to jump in with two. First of all, Ari, will you be my web guru? He's got a great website, folks. The question will be of Steve, since no one's asked Steve a question yet.
Thanks for the endorsement.
You're very welcome. Steve Salisbury, which I love. I love Salisbury. I'm from Newburyport, but I do spend a good amount of time in Salisbury. Go to the beach there, go to Tom's Discount House there, go to the upper deck there, occasionally go to the Surfside 5, occasionally go to the Sea Glass. Thank you. So what can we do to help, I guess specifically, I'll say generally all economic improvement in Salisbury, but especially the corridor from the bridge to the First Light in Salisbury. There's a lot of abandoned buildings there, and I know it's private property, and I'm not sure what can be done, but do you have any ideas of things that can be done to improve that? Thank you.
Absolutely. I come to this race with ideas. And one of that I've set on my website, which is teamstevestang.com. You can compare that to Ari's and see which one you like better. On that website, I have outlined, for example, public-private partnerships for business incubator space. We have a lot of excess real estate, and we can use in conjunction with private resources as well as public resources. A great example, being from UMass Lowell, where I graduated, we have used the Wanalaunset Mills and some the other mills to have incubator spaces for high tech. Merrimack Valley Sandbox in Lawrence has done the same thing. We can do the same thing with those kinds of spaces. I live near the industrial park in Amesbury, and we can use that space. The landlords would certainly appreciate having a tenant, and getting low rent if you're a startup is the key. The startups that we can help provide the seed, so to speak, for the equipment to help manufacturing, IT, as well as microservice businesses, because the people who start those businesses hire more people, they pay more taxes, we increase the pie. So that would be what I would do with that particular corridor, but I would expand that particular program across the community, because we do have the advantage of transportation. The locality that we have between routes 495 and 95 make this a prime spot to bring people in. Obviously, if we can get property taxes down as well, that would certainly bring in more people too. That would be what I would do.
Thank you, Steve. And I would also add that those are great ideas, thank you. And the public-private partnerships are key, and we have a lot of those that go on around here. We're very blessed to have wonderful, wonderful institutions, wonderful banks that help out all the time. And one thing I would ask us all to be aware of is the rising tides, okay? I've been a regular attendee member of the Storm Surge group. Is anyone familiar with the Storm Surge group? They meet generally in Newburyport. They're going to have a meeting October 29th. I encourage and invite everyone to come to that. And I've learned a lot about the rising tides. Now, in Salisbury and some other places, for new building, do we need to have special codes in place Because when is that all going to be swamped over? That corridor, that causeway, going from the bridge to that first light?
At the federal level and state level is really where we need to go. If you look back 6 or 8 years ago, solar's come a lot quicker, a lot more quickly than we thought it would, and I think that's really that seems to be the best of all the alternatives. So I appreciate your answer.
Thank you, and that was a very genteel attack segment. I'm shocked. We've now time, if everybody is willing to entertain questions from the audience. However, because of the hour and the temperature in the room, we're going to shift a little bit and going to give 1 minute to each candidate to answer the questions. So I'm actually going to, by the privilege of the chair, look to the timer for the first question to each of the candidates. Candidate Kalkos will answer first, followed by candidate Herzog.
Thank you. As we all know, there's been a number of tragedies. I've got to preface my question by giving an example. There's been a number of tragedies over the last year, also including one fairly recently, regarding little kids not getting services that they well deserve through the Department of Youth Services, Social Services, whatever the titles are. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of state agencies. Here's my question. Do you know what's in state employees' contracts? Because every time there's a tragedy, unfortunately, again, involving little kids, first response, in addition to the people not doing their job, we just don't have enough people in the agency to do what we're supposed to do. Here's the question again. Do you have any idea what's in state employees' contracts? Because if what happens is you throw money at that, you automatically, not you, obviously, the legislature, the governor, spend millions of more dollars to hire more people, yet do we know what's in the contracts? The vacation days, the sick days, the personal days, the holidays, professional days, training and education leave days, conference days, other unnamed days, seminar days, etc. What's in state contracts? Do any of you have any idea?
Sure. So what I think it goes back to a question that I answered earlier about accountability with the welfare reform. I think we need to hold folks accountable, and that means our state and federal employees. They're no different than our private employees. And unfortunately, I think with some of these questions that we see on the ballot, that's where we're moving towards. You know, with the sick time, I mean, those types of questions need to first go back to the legislature and be debated a little bit more about employee sick time. But when you get to start giving people those benefits, and there's nothing in there, it's all pro-employee and not pro-employer, then we're setting ourselves up for disaster down the road. Because what happens is you end up seeing somebody get laid off, the person gets laid off, they're out for God knows how long, and then they go before an arbitration board, they end up getting rehired, and we give them all their payback with their interest compounded quarterly, all at the expense of the taxpayer with no accountability. I personally have been disgusted at what's happened at the DCF level, and I don't want to see any more of that happen again.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Councilor Jones, Mr. Jones. John, do I know what's in state employee contracts? No. I can elaborate that for 10 seconds if you'd like. If I'm elected on,
You have 50 seconds.
if I'm elected on November 4th, I will look into those answers. I'll bring you to the State House, give you the tour, introduce you to everyone. I mean, I am generally curious. I don't know the answers tonight, and I'm not going to try to make up an answer.
Thank you.
Mr. Stainer.
Okay. Short answer is no. Before I started this race, I was doing other things, and I still have a day job. So my focus has been on looking at bigger, broader issues. This is a very good, specific question, though, that accountability needs to be brought into the picture by working closely with the state auditor's office. Because at that point, we can figure out exactly what's in the types of contracts, and when the contracts are up for renewal, we can start ahead of time working with the unions to change them. To your point, yes, everyone does the Mexican standoff, pointing in the other direction, saying somebody else was responsible. It's not a point of just adding more bodies. That was one of the reasons why I wasn't in favor of the expansion of the bottle bill, because there was a provision in there for adding another provision at the municipal level or state level for recycling, and there would be an additional cost, certainly long-term regarding pensions. So I would look into that, I would work with the auditor's office, and if necessary, sit down with the unions, because when you're hiring a state representative, we don't have all the answers. We are looking into the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, John, for asking that. I would look into that also. I'll do the research, find out what the situation is on the contracts and what we can do to fix it. Most of us followed the DCF tragedies that happened, and as I was seeing the story unfold, you hear about the faxes that were sent, and then it wasn't confirmed with a phone call. Very simple business practices that could have been put in place, okay? You get the police officer or whoever, someone gets a fax or an email, whatever, we have to verify that. And I think hopefully they've changed those policies, but it comes down to very simple business practices, which I have a lot of business experience, so I will bring that practical experience, those practical solutions to situations like that. And I think Steve mentioned a little while ago, public-private partnerships. Are there people willing to be on a task force, again, volunteer task force, to come up with the right situations? For someone just to call for someone's head, though, when something happens, I don't think is right either. And also, another side of it was, well, it's the high caseload. The social workers had too much of a caseload. That's another easy answer. We need to lessen their caseload, but that's complicated as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for the question. Yeah, personally, obviously, I don't know what's in each and every state union contract. That is something that, I think has been reformed. Pensions have certainly been reformed. There have been a lot of negotiations, and I've been involved as Councillor Herzog and Councillor Jones and other councillors from Newburyport in the room with negotiating with our municipal unions around sick time buyback, the amount of vacation that you'll get. There's a provision, so-called longevity, that we've gradually done away with. So there's certainly reforms that need to be made, but I want to be a state representative that is working on behalf of the customer, that is you, the taxpayer, whether it's Registry of Motor Vehicles or whether it's DCF working with families that are experiencing trauma or abuse. And let's not beat up on the employees. Let's learn from them what the ideas are that are going to improve the services. I'm all about customer service and efficiency. That's how I work. In my agency, we are constantly calling DCF with 51As for children who are at risk of neglect or abuse. And I think we need to work collaboratively to make it work better for all state employees and their clients.
I told you couldn't do a minute. This is actually not my question. This comes from the audience. Massachusetts has some of the strictest gun laws in the U.S. Why pass laws that aren't enforced? 36 years ago, the Bartley-Fox law required a person convicted of illegal gun possession to do a mandatory year in jail, and less than 10% of that is actually, less than 10% of those sentences are actually enforced. What's your position on that? Councilor Herzog.
Councilor Jones. Yeah, I alluded to this early on when I spoke of my three priority. The third priority is really to focus on treatment and care programs rather than criminalization of both gun and drug users. I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm willing to, I'm around afterwards if you have any additional questions.
Sure. Hanging out.
Thank you. Okay. Gun control, gun rights. Again, back to politics, having labels. We have a broader issue, not just a state issue. We have very strong laws in this state, but we also have guns coming in from other states being transported in. So I would suggest that we need to work on collaboratively working with those other communities, other states. We actually have in this state, to the question asked, concern of people trying to have enforcement of laws that we already have on the books. Okay, where are we going to put the people? That's the problem as well. So we actually have a bigger issue, which is mental health. And we need to find funding to properly screen and service people with mental health issues, because those are the great dangers, not the person who's hunting, not the person who has taken the gun safety classes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it is the person. I'll read real quickly from my website, which is vote4rama.com, the number 4, vote, the number 4rama.com. Continuing to strengthen our gun control laws, making Massachusetts the leader and inspirational guidepost for other states and the national agenda. It's a national agenda, folks. What happened in Connecticut should never happen again. How many times has it happened since then? Can anyone count? I can't count. It continues to happen. Nothing has happened. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, Massachusetts passed a pretty strict law. I would get on that, make it even stricter. Okay? And yes, we can work with the other states. We have to work with the other states. We have to work regionally with New Hampshire. We have to work federally. Smarter, safer gun hunting laws. Yes, guns do kill people. Google it. How many gun hunting accidents has been? Currently, someone shooting a gun. Does anyone know how far that gun rifle has to be from a house? 500 feet. That's 500 feet, and it's 150 feet from a street. So we have to have wider ranges on gun safety. Gun safety, please. We owe it to our children.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to whoever asked the question. In Massachusetts, I think we took a great step forward recently, a few months ago, when we passed the comprehensive gun legislation. That was done at the leadership of the Speaker of the House, who brought in the Gun Owners Action League early to get their input, along with the typical gun safety advocates. And what finally came out in that bill is really a way to try to put some regulations in to deal with folks who should not have handguns, should not have semi-automatic weapons. There was a mental health component, because that often is, when these gun violence episodes happen, there's often somebody for whom the mental health system has failed, because that is absolutely an issue across the country. And, you know, I don't think any of us want to take away Second Amendment rights. I think in certain parts of the country, you should probably have a gun for your own safety. And, you know, if you're living in Western Mass, way out in the middle of nowhere, you might want to have that, because the police, you know, public safety officers are very far away from you. So I think that was a good step in the right direction. In terms of Bartley Fox, I'm not in favor generally of mandatory sentencing, so a year for a minor infraction is really something we should just take that off the books.
Yeah, I think just going back to the original question, I think we went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but the enforcement of laws that are on the books that we're not really carrying forth and enforcing. We got to revisit those laws that either work, and those laws that, you know, we're not enforcing, get rid of, and those that we are enforcing and we feel are of value to society as a whole, then enforce them. And that's just about it.
I guess I guess it's time for us to, in spite of the fact we have a number of questions and a lot of people still looking to hear the answers, I really need to wrap this up. And I'd again like to repeat how grateful we all are to Olga and to the Board of Directors for allowing us to have this forum. And I think that all of us have left, we'll leave here this evening much more informed about the candidates. And all I can say, having listened intently to all 5 of them, is that no matter the outcome in November, we will be ably represented. I'm very impressed with the quality of our candidates, and thank you very much.
Should we have at least just 1 minute each to summarize, please?
You didn't say enough. You know what? Has everybody got 5 more minutes besides Miller? We're good. Thank you so much for attending.
I personally want to thank you very much, too, for staying and waiting, and I know there's a ball game on. And I do want to thank our moderator for keeping it polite. Important statements made by our candidates, and I agree with Tom Jones that indeed all candidates have something very good to offer. And I haven't thanked our court media man, Andrew Love, who is taking this on tape. I'm not sure whether we'll have it on television, but it will be there. Thank you so much for all of your